The Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, Week 3 injury update and DraftKings ownership projections. Those will be coming up a little bit later on with Geoff Ulrich from DK Live. Want to let everyone know to give the episode a like. Leave your DraftKings handle in the comment section if you want to get in a draw for $20 DK. And I want you to tell me which one of Tevin Coleman, of Gio Bernard, Latavius Murray, and Corey Clement you will play on DraftKings this week. You can only pick one, I swear to God. If you pick 2 or 3 or say all 4, which doesn't even make sense, you're banned from the channel. How about that? Anyway, we don't want to get it cluttered up too much with it. So just pick one of those 4. Which one are you going to play? All right, let's get into these injuries because that's where we're starting off with those 4 guys in particular. When we look at it right away, Joe Mixon is out. Gio Bernard is going to start at Carolina for the Bengals. Devonta Freeman has been ruled out. Tevin Coleman will start. Judge Ito might get a few looks as well. And then we're getting into a situation where Dalvin Cook and his hamstring injury has been declared out. Latavius Murray and the 17-point favored Minnesota Vikings will have Latavius Murray and I guess CJ Ham running out of the backfield for them. And in Philadelphia, Ajayi and Sproles are both out with the back and a hamstring concern. Corey Clement is projected to be the starter, although he is dealing with a quad injury right now, which means Wendell Smallwood and the recently promoted Josh Davis are going to get some run in that Eagles backfield as well. So in terms of pure rankings, all my rankings are updated on DKPlaybook.com. You can find that all in the description, along with all the time codes and everything for the show as Geoff and I go position by position, and you just want to skip over the injury part. I don't know why you would, but this is how we're doing this. But in terms of just pure rankings, no price attached, in my season-long rankings, I have Tevin Coleman now at number 8 among running backs, Latavius Murray at number 10, Gio Bernard at number 12, and Corey Clement at number 18. These are full-point PPR rankings. Coleman, Murray, and Gio actually have above David Johnson, by the way, so you might want to go check that out. But in terms of Corey Clement, it's not so much the quad that worries me, it's just the rotational backfield that the Eagles do employ over and over and over. So with Smallwood and Davis active back there, it's no guarantee that you just pencil in Corey Clement for 20 touches. It's not going to work like that. He could get there, but the risk of him not getting there versus those other 3 guys is substantially lower. So that's why he appears lower in the rankings. I have Smallwood inside the top 40 as well. I believe he comes in at number 38 in the rankings. You might be able to mine some PPR value out of him if you do need it, or if he just breaks a big one, then Clement's not doing all that much. So Clement does come with a little bit of risk, is all I'm saying. It's not that everyone is inherently risky. It's a football game. But the other one should be locked in to at least achieve where their floor is going to be. Like Coleman should see around 20 touches, Bernard between the ground, which is a tough matchup against Carolina, but he'll do enough in the passing game and with those goal line touches to hit his floor. And Murray, although he is devoid of any value really in the passing game at most times, he's going to monopolize all the goal line touches, and he should be able to sneak into the end zone against Buffalo and end up with anywhere between 15 and 25 carries, depending on how they end up running that game. Will they take him out in the third quarter if they get up by too much? It's hard to say. Are they really going to turn to Ham? Probably not, but who knows? If they're up by so much, they might end up doing that. So for me, it's Coleman, Murray, Gio, Murray over Gio because of that touchdown upside, and then Corey Clement a little further down the list. The other big news coming out of Friday is Jack Doyle not going to play for the Indianapolis Colts, and Marlon Mack appears like he is not going to play either, with both now a hamstring and foot injury. T.Y. Hilton and the quad injury will end up playing this week. So Ebron, I have moved inside my top 10 at tight end. I don't love it because he's Eric Ebron, and every time that he's in like a smash spot, he scores like 0 points. But I've moved him up to tight end number 7 for the week, so he's inside the top 10. You got Ebron, unless it's like one of those stone cold lock guys that you just play every week, play Eric Ebron instead. For the running backs in the Colts backfield, many will turn to Jordan Wilkins, but where Indy is a 6.5-point dog in this game, upwards of 7 in some spots now to the Eagles with Wentz returning, I think they go to the air a lot and continue with that death by 1,000 paper cuts offense. Just a few dinks here, a few more dunks there, and Nyheim Hines, for me, at least in PPR scoring, is probably the better floor of what you're looking at. Wilkins is likely to score a touchdown over Hines, but it's probably like 60-40 in that regard, and you can almost point to Hines being used more exclusively in the passing game. None are really ranked all that highly. They're both in the 30s because I don't know which one's going to be, and frankly, do you really want to trust the Colts' running game? Probably not. But if you're in a pinch, Hines would be the one I would play in PPR over Wilkins. In standard formats, I would play Wilkins over Hines. In San Francisco, Marquise Goodwin and his quad injury is a game-time decision for Week 3 against the Chiefs. He's probably going to go. He got in limited practices all week. I don't know how close to 100% he's going to be, but everyone just wants pieces of that high-scoring game, the highest total on the board, up to 57 points as an over-under right now. The next closest one is Saints-Falcons. They're at 53.5, so that's the game people want a part of. If Goodwin plays, you probably have to end up playing him. Unless you got a super team, then you don't have to worry about it. But for me, it would go Goodwin, Garcon, then Pettis as a part of the 49ers receiving game. Back to Philly, Mike Wallace out for the year. Alshon Jeffrey has not been cleared for contact yet, so he's going to sit. So Ertz and Aguilar, and along with the recently signed Jordan Matthews, maybe, but Aguilar and Ertz especially are going to be the focal points of that passing game. Seattle, Doug Baldwin has been ruled out for Week 3 against the Cowboys. Jacksonville, Fournette's dealing with a hamstring injury again, but he's practiced on a limited basis all 3 days, so he's probably going to play. Yeldon's dealing with an ankle injury, so check that out. We're going to be doing a live show 10 a.m. Eastern Time on the DraftKings YouTube channel, available on the podcast feeds around 11:15 a.m. as well, and we'll have better understanding of what's going to happen with that situation. But for now, it's Fournette, then it's Yeldon. If one of them's declared out, then adjust accordingly. If they're both declared out, play Corey Davis. Or not Corey Davis, Corey Grant. It's as easy as that, but Fournette, Yeldon, Grant. That's the way that you have to play it. None of them are like, I mean, you're not going to play Yeldon if Fournette's playing, but Fournette's like not an RB1 this week in terms of just concern. I have him ranked down at number 15 in my running back rankings this week. Still a start, but not like a great start by any stretch of the imagination. Dante Moncrief's knee appears to be fine as well. I think he is my favorite on DraftKings, at least, in terms of price point. Pivot off of Tyler Boyd, go on to Dante Moncrief, getting a lot of red zone work. Westbrook and Cole are the ones attracting a lot of the market share in the targets. Better season-long plays, but in terms of price and for ownership, Dante Moncrief is probably where you want to look. In Arizona, Christian Kirk and his back was removed from the injury report. Jermaine Gresham and his Achilles is probably not going to play, and Larry Fitzgerald practiced on a limited basis on Thursday and Friday with that hamstring problem. I just don't like this offense in general, and he's already banged up. I moved him down to number 39 in the rankings. I think you can do better at wide receiver this week. I'm willing to be a week late on all these Arizona guys rather than just continually believing that they're going to get enough volume and that's going to turn into production. Just those two things don't correlate in the Arizona offense right now. So I'm pensive on them. If I miss a good week from Fitz, then I miss a good week. I think it's far more likely as a bad week than a good week, put it that way. In Tennessee, Marcus Mariota and his elbow and gripping problems. He's a maybe, probably going to play, but again, that's a Sunday morning type thing. You can't really love anyone in this Tennessee offense. I think the two that you could really only point to is not even must starts. You might have better options, but Corey Davis and his target share against Jacksonville, especially starts running underneath. It is a really tough matchup, though, and Dion Lewis would be the other one if he can get a few dumps out of the backfield, and maybe he can establish something on the ground against Jacksonville. So it'd be Lewis in PPR and standard, actually, over Derrick Henry for me. I think he ends up with more touches and more ample opportunity because, I mean, if we just look at carries, yeah, Derrick Henry probably gets the goal line work, but Dion Lewis will probably just get more valuable touches as the game goes along anyway. So Lewis over Henry for me. In New England, Rob Gronkowski was taken off the injury report with that ankle, so he's fine. Josh Gordon and his hamstring. I have him in my rankings right now. It's a tough spot, too, because that's a Sunday night game. So I factored that into the rankings. I don't have him very high. I believe he's in the mid to low 40s. I'm just not going to trust him week one. He's Josh Gordon. He could absolutely go off in this spot, but I would expect him, even if he does play, to not have a full grasp of the playbook, still be on a pitch count, and he is dealing with a hamstring injury. Like, that's still a thing. So I wouldn't go out of my way to play Josh Gordon this week, put it that way. Marvin Jones and his ankle injury was a late add to the injury report. You never want to see this. He's questionable against the Pats. You're not going to know his status until Sunday night. I've moved him down in the rankings, moved Golladay up a little bit. So Detroit receivers for me in the Sunday nighter, Tate, Golladay, Jones. I think they're playable, all three of them, especially against that weak New England defense, but he would be the lowest priority for me right now because of that ankle injury. And in Buffalo, LaShawn McCoy has practiced all week, but in a non-contact jersey. So he might not play, which leaves Chris Ivory and Marcus Murphy in the backfield. In PPR formats, I would rather just play Murphy, to be perfectly honest with you. I think that if it was a closer game and they weren't 17-point dogs, then Ivory would probably be the play. He's probably going to get the goal line touches if they ever make it near the goal line. But I think as the course of game flow goes along, Murphy has already established himself on third down and as a pass-catching back. So if they're going to be trailing for much of this game, Marcus Murphy is a sneaky PPR play. He's like league min on DraftKings this week, too. He's 3,300 or 3,000. I can't quite remember. I'll talk about it with Geoff Ulrich here in a minute too. But he's not someone you can rely on, obviously. But if you're in a pinch in a super deep league, I have my doubts that, I looked on ESPN, he's less than 1% owned. He's someone you can use in a pinch if you really desperately need it. So that's just something to look at with Marcus Murphy. The quick injury report, just a few things to look for. Paul Richardson, knee and shoulder injury, is questionable for week 3 against the Packers. The Giants' Eli Apple and Olivier Vernon were both out on Friday. They're probably not going to play against the Texans. So fire up all your Texans playmakers. That sounds like a great spot against the Giants, especially at home. The Bills' defensive end Shaq Lawson is out for week 3. On the other side of the ball, Everson Griffin is also not going to play for the Vikings. Sean Lee and the Cowboys and his hamstring problem. Who would have thought Sean Lee would be banged up 3 weeks into the season? Mind-blowing to me. But it looks like he is going to play against Seattle. And the Rams' Mark Barron is dealing with an ankle injury, and he is doubtful for week 3. That's the injury report. Let's get into how that shakes out and really rattles up the DraftKings Millionaire Maker in terms of ownership projections and the potential pivots that may have. Geoff Ulrich coming up next on the PME. Now that we're through all of the injuries, let's get into the DraftKings main slate, Millionaire Maker slate, that would be. Ownership projections, maybe some pivots, and how the injuries affect everything. Joining me to break this all down, it's DK Live's Geoff Ulrich. It looks like running backs are going to be a bit tricky, a bit chalky, like you had just mentioned to me off the air. So in terms of the fansharesports.com tagging system, which is what we're going to be using, Geoff, it does look like Clement, Kamara, and Gio are the top 3, but they might not be the 3 highest owned guys coming out of this.
No, I think Clement's going to garner quite a bit of ownership just because his price is so cheap. I think he got 67 up there, but I think he's actually 43. So, yeah, I expect Clement's definitely going to be one of the chalkier plays at running back. But Latavius Murray, obviously Dalvin Cook ruled out now. 5,800 and just a prime matchup, obviously at home. He's going to garner a ton of ownership. He's basically the Tevin Coleman play from last week. You just expect his popularity, ownership to rise as we get through the weekend. So there's 2 or 3 spots in running back, going to be very condensed. If you don't mind taking a little bit of risk, it could be a really good week to get some of these lower owned guys because there are going to be a couple of them out there.
Well, if we looked at it, I'm with you on Clement, the fact that he's so low in the pricing and he's the only one of these sort of obvious plays that comes in $1,500 to $2,000 less than everyone else, that he both is going to be concentrated in terms of ownership and he does allow you access to those top guys, potentially even 2 in the $6,000 area if that's the route you wanted to go down. Is there anyone else down there besides Clement that you can see? Obviously, there's not going to be anyone who lines up as like a smash play like Corey Clement is projected to be, but are there any other options down there you don't mind? Because I don't hate Nyheim Hines in this matchup, especially with Marlon Mack potentially, or Marlon Mack not going to play.
I think I'd play Wilkins over Hines, though. I feel like he performed a little bit better last week. I guess that's the problem with the Indy backs is we don't really know which one of these players is going to perform. Neither one of them have been that good. So, but I think both of them are kind of in play. I was leaning Wilkins, but if you can talk me into Hines, it's the same situation, right? They're going to be splitting time. So the other player I did kind of have a little bit of interest in, and this is more maybe of like a stack play with the Rams offense, but Austin Eckler, if you look at what the Rams have done against opposing running backs, they've kind of shut off the run, but they've really opened up that late like dump off pass, especially in week 1 to Jalen Richard, who went for like 10 receptions. So if you're thinking the Rams are going to get ahead in this game, I could see Eckler coming in, providing that spark to the offense because the Rams secondary is so good. They're probably going to shut off the main targets, the guys like Keenan Allen, at least to an extent. I think Eckler is a little bit of a sneaky play this week at 4,400. I know he's risky. He's definitely more of a GPP Millionaire Maker play, but exact same price as Clement, basically. I think he's a good swerve, especially if you like the Ram stack.
Yeah, I actually don't mind a Chargers stack as well. I mean, there's a situation where if the game breaks down the right way, like Rivers, Gordon, and Eckler might be the way that you want to attack this game if you think that the outside is going to be relatively barren in terms of targets and they funnel everything to the middle of the field. So I like that Eckler call. I like Hines more than Wilkins because of the receiving capabilities, but there is an off chance that Shady McCoy sits as well. So that would leave Chris Ivory and Marcus Murphy. The China Club. He's down there. They're both below $4,000. I think I would go Marcus Murphy over Chris Ivory. I know Ivory would be the one who probably handles the initial work in terms of carries, and he would probably get all the goal line touches, but how many goal line touches are there really going to be in Minnesota? It just seems like Murphy's going to be sort of the cheap receiving back who's like, well, how much is Murphy right now? He's
3,300.
3,300. Like, for a shot in the dark, I'm not saying play Marcus Murphy, but if Shady does sit out, he could probably play 45% of the snaps. And if they get down super early, he might be on the field like 70% of the time.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought Murphy up. That was the guy I wanted to bring up, and I completely forgot. He's outsnapped Chris Ivory the first 2 weeks in the backup role. He's essentially overtaken him. Now, Ivory got the touchdown last week, and I'm sure Chris Ivory is going to be involved in the offense if McCoy sits. And I think Shady McCoy is going to sit. I'd be shocked if he plays through like broken ribs, right? So just given the state of Buffalo. But I think Marcus Murphy is definitely in play. He's more of the PPR back there for sure. You know, he's kind of got that kick returner style ability as well. So he could definitely break off a couple big plays, hit value at 3,300. That's definitely a play I'm looking at. The other play down there is Wendell Smallwood. Corey Clement, yes, he's going to be the lead back, but he's banged up with a quad injury. And Wendell Smallwood is much more akin to the Darren Sproles role. So Corey Clement's not going to play every down. I guarantee it. Doug Peterson loves to rotate in backs. We saw Smallwood take 8 or 10 touches last game with Clement and Ajayi in the game. I think Smallwood is very much in play at 3,000. That's the other player I was looking at that range.
So you have Davis, you have Wendell Smallwood. Like, what's the percentage chance that from what an expectation standpoint is from Clement, where he's only $4,300, how much does he really have to do in order to succeed? You would hope that he goes off, and if he's chalk and he's going to go off, you're going to need to have him in your lineup if everything breaks down the right way. But what's the chance that, let's not worry about yardage, let's not worry about touchdowns, let's worry about touches. So in terms of touches for Corey Clement, and I set the over-under at 15, what do you think are the chances he goes under that?
I don't think it's a huge chance, but I think 30%, maybe 25, 30% he goes under that. Doug Peterson likes to rotate in backs. You also have, Carson Wentz coming back, who's just a better running quarterback. And then you have the added factor that he's a little bit banged up. So you saw him come out of the game a little bit last week. If that happens again, Smallwood has been there for a couple of years. They've also activated another player who's actually pretty good, and I can't remember his name right now, but the Eagles will still have 3 backs active for this game. So I think there's a decent enough chance that he's more of a fade target for me than someone like Murray this week.
Yeah, so Jason Davis is the other running back who's going to be active for them this week. So let's go up, because that's from the low end of the pricing, from like the $6,000 up end of the pricing, the guys that I have projected to be over 15% owned in the Millionaire Maker, and they're all clustered together. It's Clement is going to be one of them. He's the guy from the low end. Hunt, Gurley, Kamara, Latavius Murray, Tevin Coleman, Gio Bernard. So no Joe Mixon, everyone's playing Gio Bernard. No Dalvin Cook, everyone's playing Latavius Murray. Do you have a preference between those two guys in terms of who's going to be higher owned and who should be higher owned?
I mean, Latavius has to be the higher owned. I mean, he should be the higher owned. I mean, Gio Bernard, I get he's in a workhorse role. He's not a workhorse back, though. He's meant for the PPR role. If you've seen him run the ball, we've seen Gio take workhorse type roles in Cincinnati before. It hasn't really worked out. He pops with like one big game because he gets one big reception, and then the rest of the season he's just junk. That's why they had to draft another running back. So I'm not sure why people are getting excited over this. He's $5,900. The price is up. I think there's way better plays than Gio Bernard this week. And then you add in the factor they're playing Carolina, who's not a very good matchup at all. So Latavius Murray to me should be the absolute chalk this week. If people are taking Gio over Latavius, I'll happily go 100% Latavius Murray in this spot. 17-point favorite at home. Yeah, it's got to be Murray for me.
So when I look at it and all these guys are clustered together, I still think I just much prefer Tevin Coleman.
Yeah, and that's a fine play too, in my opinion. I think people are going to be off him a little bit now more because obviously the price went up and we have all these attractive attractive other targets to go to who are cheaper. So Tevin Coleman, there's a couple other players up there who are interesting too. Jordan Howard, Chris Thompson, their ownership is going to get sucked down because everything is going to go to Gio. Everything is going to go to Latavius Murray. People are going to use Clement. No one's going to pay. I shouldn't say no one, but fewer people are going to pay up for the Howards, the Tevin Colemans, and the Chris Thompsons.
Yeah, I don't think that people are going to pay up for them. If people are going to pay up at running back, at least by the projections that I'm looking at, it's going to be for Kamara and it's going to be for Gurley and potentially Christian McCaffrey, because that is what either, if you want to use Wendell Smallwood, you could pay up for whoever the hell you want. But even if you use Clement, you can pair him with one of those guys, no problem, still have a decent average salary cap. The guy I'm looking at to pivot off of there. So I'm hoping that all this Gio, all this Murray kind of takes away from Coleman and he comes in around like 10%. That would be awesome for me because I like him more than those two guys. But it's Melvin Gordon. Like, very few people are going to use Melvin Gordon this week, and I just think that's a mistake.
Yeah, I mean, Melvin Gordon's again, he does have Eckler to worry about, but he's very involved in the pass game. So he's not necessarily a game flow dependent back, right? And I was kind of looking at him this week. I did bring up Eckler just because he's cheaper, and I feel like if it is going to be a big passing game, then I might as well just go with the cheaper option. But I understand the Melvin Gordon angle. He's going to be way underowned this week. Like you mentioned, most people will just either pay up for the Gurley or the Kamara, or they'll pay down in the 6K or 5K range. So it leaves Melvin Gordon in a dead spot ownership-wise. The game flow, again, it's not something that you necessarily have to worry about with Melvin Gordon because he's so involved in the pass game. And with the Rams secondary, he's probably going to get funneled more passes in this game anyways. So absolutely, I can see the value in there. I'm probably just going to go Eckler because he's cheaper and he's a really good pass catcher too. But Melvin Gordon's the guy who'll get the touchdowns if that happens. So.
Yeah, I can see using them both to just alternating them between lineups if that's the way that you wanted to go. But it does seem from like Jordan Howard up to Ezekiel Elliott that if you do have a preference that you think one of those guys is going to absolutely smash, everyone in that range is going in under own. So Zeke, Barkley, Gordon, David Johnson, Leonard Fournette. We're not even sure if he's going to be 100% yet, but it does look like he's going to play. And then Jordan Howard. And people are kind of starting with Coleman, Thompson, Hunt, Gio, Latavius Murray. Like that cluster is getting all the ownership, and the ones of the five right above them just aren't.
Yeah, I like Elliott in that range personally. I was surprised that the Cowboys were underdogs. They're only like 1 point underdogs, but everyone likes the Cowboys defense, and we'll probably talk about that in a bit. Well, maybe not everyone, but I like the Cowboys defense. So the natural inclination should be to pair him with the running back, and Zeke has already he's like on pace for 65 targets and 65 catches, I should say, in the pass game already this year. He's averaged 4.6 yards per carry. I like this spot for Zeke and the Dallas defense as a correlation play, and it's going to be under-owned. So.
Yeah, you can do Zeke, you can do Dallas's D. I think that's almost the same amount of money that you'd have to pay to do Latavius Murray and the Vikings defense as well.
Yeah. And Jordan Howard and the Bears works out pretty much the same too.
I don't love the Bears defense this week. I think they're I think they're a fine floor cash game play, but I don't know if Arizona is going to lend itself to giant opposing defense fantasy days. Like even with the Rams last week, they got a shutout and scored 13 points.
That's true.
Like they just they run they don't do anything, so it's hard.
Sam Bradford doesn't throw it longer than 5 yards, right? So
yeah, well, he's not throwing a ton of picks. He just throws it directly into the ground, and they never take 5-step drops. It's just like and that's it. So we never get sacked either.
That's true. I mean, it's a fair point, and they'll probably try and run David Johnson into the line of scrimmage 1,000 times too in the first half, right? So yeah, I can actually see that. As being a reason to avoid them, I guess. It just might not be any opportunity for Khalil Mack to sack and Sam Bradford's career this week. So, yeah, I mean, there's three or four defenses up there that just have a ton of upside and really good spots. It's interesting. Obviously, the Vikings, Jags too, and the Bears. But, yeah, I can see that be as a valid reason not to get on the Bears this week.
Yeah, and you're going to have to nitpick with some of these defenses because there's a few really good ones in tough matchups. We'll save that for the defensive section when we get to it. The last range I did want to talk about at running back is this $5,000 range where no one is going to own anybody outside of Gio and Latavius. But like Kenyon Drake's in there, and he's been good and in a good matchup. Like Marshawn Lynch is at the very bottom. Like 3 days ago, everyone loved Matt Breida. Now everyone hates his guts. Like that's kind of crazy. Alex Collins is there looking for a rebound. Like I'm not advocating playing these guys. The one that I probably would go to, like Lamar Miller's in there as well. I think Drake would be the guy that if you wanted to find lower ownership just in this dead range, that he would be the one here.
Drake is the guy that's interesting me too. I always love a back that is potentially going to get the goal line carries and is really involved in the pass game. He's got caught 7 of 8 targets already this season. The Raiders are one of the bottom 5 teams in terms of yards allowed to the running back position. Kenyon Drake averaged like 5.5 yards per carry last game. This is a very good back. Yes, he's in like a 60-40, 65-35 split with Frank Gore, but his price is down. His upside is the same as other backs. His floor isn't as good. So I think he's a very good swerve play this week. He obviously comes with a little bit more risk because Frank Gore could steal a touchdown or two, but it's a really, really a good upside matchup for Kenyon Drake for sure.
Is it a week to go back to Alfred Morris instead of Matt Breida?
God, maybe. I don't know. The whole who to target on San Francisco right now is giving me headaches. I want to just go back to George Kittle, but Marquise Goodwin might be active, and then you got the running backs. I would probably just lean Breida. Again, Alfred Morris just doesn't do it for me in the pass game. I feel like Breida is the upside play again in this matchup, but
I just think there are better options than Breida around his price point.
That's the way I'm leaning too. I'm probably just going to avoid both of them, to be honest.
Let's move to wide receivers. When we think about the top 3 most tagged wide receivers in terms of FanShare Sports for the week, we end up on Michael Thomas, Nelson Aguilar, and Julio Jones. Even with the calf injury, he's going to play, so there's no need to worry about it. The guys that I have projected over 15% ownership this week, those 3, Tyreek Hill, Will Fuller, Tyler Boyd down at the bottom, and Sammy Watkins, because everyone wants to get a piece of this Kansas City game. So Hunt's going to be over, Hill and Watkins are going to be over, Kelsey's probably going to be one of the highest-owned tight ends, Mahomes probably the highest-owned quarterback. So here's where we go. Is there any way you can fade the Chiefs passing game here?
I mean, you definitely can. It's such a weird spot. Like, this game has a 56-point total. Obviously, it's got a ton of goodness. Obviously, Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes, but they're expensive, right? I mean, we're talking about like a $15,000 stack on DraftKings, which you really need to pay off. So I think my inclination is actually going to go either fade maybe one of them, maybe just play Tyreek by himself and then go with a cheaper quarterback wide receiver stack and try and get some exposure to the game that way. I'm going to have exposure to the game. I'm not necessarily going to have like this huge like San Francisco KC only stack, but I'll have exposure to Tyreek Hill. I might even throw like a Kareem Hunt in there. And if Marquise Goodwin is active, that's the player I'll be most interested in, because I really feel like if he's healthy and if he's active, Jimmy Garoppolo will give him the targets in this game. And the matchup is really good. So I'm going to be waiting on that Sunday morning. If he gets a good, clean bill of health, I'll definitely be targeting Marquise Goodwin. He'll be the under-owned option. But I don't think you should fade it completely. I definitely will consider going under the field ownership. But no, I think you got to get some exposure to these guys. I just feel like Tyreek Hill, I know the targets haven't been huge, but eventually he's going to come up with one of these like 15 target games, and he's just going to keep going, basically. I don't think there's any stopping him this year, to be honest.
I think that if you wanted to get a different piece of this game, you have to figure out a path to where Mahomes doesn't throw 4 touchdowns. Therefore, Kelsey doesn't get anything, Hill doesn't get anything, and Watkins doesn't get anything. Maybe it's Chris Conley who gets in. Maybe it's Demarcus Robinson, right. Whatever. I think the move that I like the best, and you have to reverse engineer how these guys don't score points, it's Hunt in the Chiefs defense. Not that the Chiefs defense is any good, but what if they get a pick 6? Then all of a sudden the Chiefs offense isn't on the field anymore and they're up and maybe they run a bit. I think that would be the way that instead of fading the game, you just take the parts of the game that no one else is going to take. Not to say that Hunt isn't going to be popular. He is, but I don't think a lot of people are going to play the Kansas City defense.
Yeah, and that was kind of my thinking on Marquise Goodwin too, that people might fade him a little bit just because of the injury concerns. But it's the same idea with Hunt and KC. I mean, KC actually played okay in spots against the Steelers last week. And it's not like San Francisco has been this unstoppable force. They have O-line issues. They have injuries. So the KC defense at home, absolutely. And Kareem Hunt, he's going to be owned, but he's not going to be the most popular piece of this puzzle this week. So I think that's a valid way to attack it too. Maybe take Goodwin and Hunt together with Garoppolo, who's a little bit cheaper too. He'll be a little bit lesser owned than Patrick Mahomes, sorry. But there's a lot of ways to attack this game. I'm not going to get too fancy. I'm not going to look at like Connolly. I'm not going to look at Trent Taylor from San Francisco or anything, but you can definitely look at the running game for KC. You can think about the KC defense too. I think those are valid plays for sure.
So I have right now Nelson Aguilar projected to come in at over 15% ownership. Do you think that he gets up to that number? Because everyone's playing Clement, and I just feel like if people look at it, they're like, well, Wentz is just coming back. They'll lean on the run. Clement is cheaper, and Nelson Aguilar is pretty expensive. Because there are two stacks that I kind of like here that are sort of offbeat stacks. One is Wentz, Aguilar, and Ertz without Clement, or you can just take the two Minnesota guys and Kirk Cousins, because now everyone's taking Latavius Murray, and they'll just avoid those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Aguilar will still be fairly popular. I think he'll crack 15% if I had to guess. But yeah, I think the Clement news will affect him a little bit. It's just his targets are so condensed, right? I mean, there's just everyone knows the injury issues. So, and he's been pretty steady the first 2 weeks. And the other issue is it's kind of a dead zone in the 6K range. I mean, there's no one else to really love. I know Will Fuller's getting a lot of love at 5,900, and that could build momentum as we go into Sunday. But other than that, I mean, people kind of like TY, but they don't love him. Marquise Goodwin obviously doesn't have the clean bill of health. So I feel like Aguilar, he's just kind of in that range where he's probably going to get a lot of ownership just because there's no other options.
I think so as well, yeah. So Fuller and Aguilar are the two that everyone's coming around on. Hilton dealing with the quad injury. Amari Cooper is going to be shadowed. When it comes to the Minnesota guys, you have Latavius Murray spiking in ownership is going to take away from how much people actually want to be exposed to that game. And if you're going to lean on Murray, who's not a pass-catching running back whatsoever, that you're now just banking on rushing touchdowns. So why would you also have the receivers in the same lineup? That correlation doesn't make a ton of sense. So it's really difficult for me to kind of figure this out and wrap my mind around it. No one's owning Keenan Allen for like the first time in ages, and no one seems to be owning AJ Green either.
Yeah, I'm not.
I get why people aren't owning them. They're just the two worst matchups. But sometimes we see this, that the best spot an elite receiver can be in terms of like winning you a giant GPP are these ultra skilled guys with a ton of volume who just happen to be in a bad matchup. But it just turns out they're so good it doesn't matter.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd add Odell Beckham to that list, although I think he'll get a little bit more ownership. That's probably the player I would be targeting if I was looking at one of these elite wide receivers and sort of a not great matchup or with a down week in terms of, a recency bias or whatever you want to call it. AJ Green, definitely not that bad a matchup. I mean, Carolina's corners aren't exactly what you call elite, and they do have some injury issues there too. So, yeah, Keenan Allen I'll probably stay away from just because I just feel like the Rams secondary is so good. I'm not sure if Keenan Allen is quite good enough to necessarily overcome that for a massive game. He could put up a solid game, but I'd be shocked if he put up like 150 and 2 touchdowns. AJ Green, we've definitely seen do it before. So I wouldn't put anyone off like a 2-4% owned AJ Green. I like Beckham, though, if you're going to pay up. And actually, the other player I do kind of like, who's a little bit less, but Brandon Cooks is going to be like 3% owned again. He had a massive week last week. He just didn't get into the end zone. 8 catches, 157 yards. The Chargers haven't really been that good defensively through 2 games, and it's a little bit of a perceived tougher matchup, but I like going back to Brandon Cooks personally. We're talking about like lower owned wide receivers.
Well, even when we look at the other Rams receivers, like Cooper Kupp is the one that looks like he's going to breach double-digit ownership numbers this week, or at right around 10%. No one's owning Robert Woods. They're more around the same price if you're going to save. So that might be the move. Take Woods over Cooper Kupp. Like Sammy Watkins should be around 10%. He comes in at $50, $100. But that's really it from down there. Besides, until we like really get down, it's Watkins and it's Cooper Kupp, and that's really about it. Like, no one's owning Woods. No one's owning... Like, why not Devin Funchess? He ended up like 7 for 77 last week.
Yeah, Funchess, I mean, again, the matchup is bad, but you could definitely overcome it just because of the volume of targets, right? So he's pretty cheap, though, at $5K for basically what is a number 1 wide receiver. The Cincy secondary isn't one I go out of my way to target, but yeah, contrarian play at that range for basically the number 1 receiver on the Panthers. Absolutely, he should be in play for Millionaire Maker targets.
Yeah, like I mentioned before, like Tyler Boyd's really the only other one. Everyone's just going down to him because he's such a good price. People saw what he did last Thursday night, and everyone's super excited. If you're going to pivot off of him and pay down at receiver, are there other options that you do like? Because I think I might just go back to Mike Williams. I don't care if it's a tough matchup. It doesn't look like Travis Benjamin's going to play. That could change, and where that's a later game, we're not going to know. But even last week, without Travis Benjamin on the field, Mike Williams played 70% of the snaps. He's a huge presence in the red zone because of that big body. Antonio Gates is still dealing with an illness, so if they can get him into the slot, and even for Keenan Allen, you can say the same thing too. If they just move him around the field, he could get himself into really nice situations all over. I think the Chargers' offense is going to be fine against the Rams. I think this game shoots out more than a lot of people do. But Mike Williams is he's such a threat to score a touchdown so often that if he's going to be sub 4,000, I like that. And I like Jamison Crowder as well.
Yeah. Okay. The Washington situation is interesting because I wish Paul Richardson was either healthy or he's just scratched, because then he could just play Crowder. Richardson actually leads the team in targets so far, and I know he's banged up last week and he looks banged up this week. I think I would rather go Richardson in that spot over Crowder if they both play, but I admit, you're taking a chance with a banged up player. So I see the value in Crowder, though. I don't mind either of those plays. I think it's a great matchup against Green Bay, whose secondary looks just as bad as it was last year. I'm kind of with you on Mike Williams. I'll throw out one more name because I'm not playing Tyler Boyd at all. I think Tyler Boyd's a good player. I think he's going to be a really good secondary receiver for the Bengals. I'm not going back to him in this matchup. I think Taylor Gabriel is kind of interesting. I think he had nine touches of the ball. He got red zone carries. He had 7 passing targets. He just missed another long pass with Trubisky. So this guy's going to break out a long touchdown at some point of the year for the Bears. This is a very good matchup for him. So I think Taylor Gabriel for the Millionaire Maker is really definitely in play this week. And again, I'm not going back to Tyler Boyd if he's going to be even semi-chalky. There's just too many other in this price range. I just don't feel like I like to eat the chalk, especially with a guy who's a secondary receiver. Who knows how many targets he's going to get this week.
The big thing is with these chalky sub receivers that unless it's like an egregious mispricing, you're still just gambling on the upside that comes along with these guys and whatever the volume that they got last week. And that doesn't necessarily translate week to week to week. There's a reason that they're priced down to this point, is that they're relatively inconsistent. So it's not to say that Boyd can't go off. He has probably a better chance or an equal chance to a lot of people that are around him. But I think that if you faded the chalk sub $4,000 receiver every week on DraftKings for all 17 weeks, you would come out way ahead of the game.
Yeah, that's usually the way I look at it too. It's just, again, we're not talking about like prime targets in the offense usually, unless there's an injury or something, and then it just makes it easy. But Tyler Boyd's case, again, it's not really the greatest matchup. It's not really expected to be like an offensive shootout between these teams. Carolina saw what he did last week, so they're probably going to be at least a bit more aware of his presence than the Ravens were, right? So I just think it's an easy situation to fade if he's going to get it like over double-digit ownership.
So like I said, Mike Williams is right there. Jamison Crowder is there as well. The other one, and I was waiting for reports all week on his knee, and nothing came out, and he's just been practicing, so I guess he's fine. It's Dante Moncrief. He's right at that price. I'll play Moncrief, and I won't play Tyler Boyd because the Titans secondary kind of reeks.
Yeah, I'm a little bit worried that game's just going to get really ugly because Tennessee will just try and just, Blaine Gabbert threw the ball 20 times last week, and they're just going to try and just, again, do these fake punts and just drag the game pace down. And Jacksonville doesn't really mind playing that way with their defense either. So I do see the benefit, though, of Moncrief, especially because people will probably try and play Keenan Cole. At that price, Moncrief just needs a couple plays, and you're right. It's a good matchup on paper for the Jacksonville wide receivers. So I don't mind Moncrief. I'm probably just going to avoid that game altogether, though, quite frankly.
I just like the usage through 2 games that although he's not super duper involved because they're not passing all that often, but he's going to be right around 20% market share of the team's offense. And they do look to him in the red zone. Like if Austin Seferian-Jenkins is covered, and let's say Leonard Fournette is still banged up a little bit, when he's banged up or not playing, they have a propensity to throw way more. So if they get in close, like I'd put him at like a 25% chance to score a touchdown if they get in there 4 times. Like he'll probably get a target or 2 down there. And I can't say the same thing about Boyd. They might just rack it up to AJ Green every time.
Yeah, absolutely. Moncrief is probably, like you said, he's probably going to have over the course of the season a bigger market share, right? So I don't mind Moncrief. I think Moncrief and Gabriel are both interesting. Gabriel probably, for me, maybe a little bit more upside in this matchup and just more of an upside player. But Moncrief probably maybe a little bit safer floor. Yeah.
All right. Switch to quarterbacks then. Number 1 coming in on the list. No surprise in terms of fansharesports.com tags. It is Patrick Mahomes. The number 2 in tags, the guy on the other side of the field, Jimmy Garoppolo. Then it's Deshaun Watson coming in at $6,100. So do you have Can you fade Mahomes, I guess is the question. And is Mahomes one of these guys that you can just play by himself, play naked Mahomes?
Yeah, I think if I was going to play Mahomes, I would just go for the whole shebang and just pair him with Tyreek personally. Like I said off the top, I feel like the target share for Tyreek is actually just going to get bigger. I feel like that's really where Mahomes wants to go most of the time. I feel like last week you saw Kelsey get more involved in the first half just because the opportunity was there, and they were ahead so fast that he just didn't really have to go crazy. But you could play him by himself. I mean, this guy's got a lot of running ability too. I mean, we haven't seen it yet, but he definitely have a game where he goes for like 50 yards and a touchdown too. So that's something else to consider. I think you can fade Mahomes personally. Like I said off the top, I'm going to have pieces of this game. I actually feel like I'd rather, if I was going to play one of Tyreek or Mahomes, I'd play Tyreek. He could take a rush for 80 yards or something like that too. He could take another punt return. So there's more factors with Tyreek going off than there is with just Mahomes. And the other thing is Mahomes is like the most expensive quarterback now, right? So you can pay down to some higher end options like a Deshaun Watson, who, you know, maybe the Texans don't put up as many points as KC, or maybe even Mahomes outscores Deshaun Watson by 5 points. But you're going to get such a break with the price now that I do feel like you can actually fade Mahomes this week.
I would have a much easier time fading Jimmy G than fading Mahomes. I'll end up playing Mahomes. Absolutely. Like I probably won't be playing any Garoppolo. I
might have one. I didn't think it was going to be this chalky, to be honest, at first. I'm looking at a few ownership projections now, and yeah, he's not really going to be that unpopular, unfortunately. I thought he was going to be less popular than he was, but I still might have one. Jimmy Garoppolo, for me, all depends on Marquise Goodwin. If Marquise Goodwin is out this week, I will not play Jimmy Garoppolo. If he is, I will probably have a Garoppolo Goodwin stack. I really feel like so far this year, he's really missed that stretch the field option with Goodwin. If he's back and healthy, I think that really busts his upside up. So that's my Jimmy Garoppolo note for the week. It's all dependent on Goodwin.
Do you think that Carson Wentz is going to be relatively highly owned in this comeback spot? Just because, like I mentioned, that unless Rudolph scores a touchdown, if the Vikings can somehow generate all of these passing yards and passing scores, it's concentrated. Thielen, Diggs, and Cousins. The Eagles work very much the same way. If it's not Clement, who's really getting involved, like Goddard doesn't steal a touchdown, you're looking at Ertz, Aguilar, and Wentz as the primary cogs in that offense. That maybe that's just the way you want to play it. Are you are you scared of Indy's D yet?
I'm not necessarily scared of Indy's D. No, they have played solid, but I mean, this is a pretty good spot for the Eagles. They're pretty big favorites at home. I don't know what to do with Carson Wentz this week. I'll probably just fade him like I did basically all of last year and regretted it. But you're right. I mean, it's a condensed spot. I don't know how popular he's actually going to be. He might be the person to go down to because he's probably going to be – he might not be – he's going to be a semi-popular, but he's not going to be as popular as the top three options. That's for sure. So you're definitely going to get a little bit of reduced ownership with him, Aguilar, and Ertz. I think I'd actually rather take a stack on the other side of that game with Ty and Andrew Luck, just because Andrew Luck is so cheap at 5,600 this week. He's going to be more likely to be passing the ball 40 to 50 times. I think that's the way I'm looking at this game. I actually like the other side better, and then I'll take one of the Eagles receiving or running back options to go back. But Wentz, to me, I'll probably just fade. It's his first week back. We'll see how it goes. The public looks like they're going to get on him a little bit, but I'll probably fade it. I recognize it's a decent spot, though.
Well, the best value from down there has to be Matt Ryan.
Yeah, I just never play Matt Ryan. I mean,
everyone's just talking about this Chiefs-Niners game. Chiefs-Niners. Like the Saints and Falcons game isn't that far behind in terms of total points.
Absolutely. No, it's just one of those things like Julio Jones never scores a touchdown. So when you're pairing him with Matt Ryan, like you're paying up this egregious salary for Julio Jones and you're just not getting the correlation. So he's not going to score 2 touchdowns on the ground like he did last week. And he doesn't really throw for 300 yards that much either. You know, he doesn't really have the stretch the field option like with a guy like Taylor Gabriel anymore, or anything like that, like they did back when they went to the Super Bowl. So I just feel like even in this good matchup, his upside is a little bit capped. Like I said, I'd rather go to a guy like Andrew Luck, who I think is going to be in a position to throw a lot more at that price. I also like Jared Goff at 5,900 to pair with Cooks, just because that Rams passing offense has just looked so good to me, and I feel like people are sleeping on it a bit. But I'm out on Matt Ryan, like I am most weeks, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I think those are the game stacks you want to look at, though. If everyone's going to be stacking one game in particular as a complete game stack, look at that Saints and Falcons game. The other one that I would look at is that Chargers-Rams game, like Rivers, Goff, whatever one you prefer from there, and even try to bring it back the other way with someone else. And we didn't even really mention Drew Brees. I can't get a gauge on Drew Brees' ownership because I always think that he's going to be under-owned, but then he never is.
Right. Yeah, Drew. If I was going to target that game, I would probably go with like a Drew Brees Kamara stack or something like that, because Kamara obviously in the good spot, going up against the Falcons D. Gave up a billion catches to Christian McCaffrey last week out of the backfield. So that's probably where I would be going if I was going to target this game. I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to get a piece. I'm definitely going to play Tevin Coleman. Not sure if I'll be paying up for any one of the Saints, but that's probably how I would approach it if I was going for a stack.
Tight ends, when we consult fansharesports.com, they're showing us that George Kittle me Timbers coming in at number 1. Everyone is not dissuaded by last week when he let everyone down at that price, so he's coming in at number 1. Zach Ertz is number 2 in terms of tags, but not ownership. And then you have Austin Hooper coming in at number 3. I like all three of these guys. They're in my cheat sheet, which is up on dkplaybook.com right now. The highest, do you think that Kittle remains the highest owner? Do you think that everyone just dumps on Ebron now that Jack Doyle is out?
I think people will dump on Ebron. I'm a little bit disappointed in the public here. I thought everyone was going to be scared of George Kittles. I thought this was going to be like, oh, I can't play George Kittles after what happened last week. I thought everyone was just going to be off him. It was going to be a great spot. We'll get back on him. Maybe not like 8 to 10% ownership. Now it's like last week. He's number 1 in tags. He's everyone's on him again. Everyone wants to play the comeback option on San Francisco. So again, it comes down to Marquise Goodwin for me. If Goodwin's active, I'll have more shares of Goodwin than Kittle, but I recognize it's still a good spot, obviously. Eric Ebron, I just dislike Eric Ebron, man. He's such a waste of a first-round draft pick.
Okay, well, let me ask you this: do you think he'll get to over 20% owned? Because I think that I think that people will get off of Kittle and save the $1,000 and go to Ebron. Yeah,
absolutely. He's going to be chalk this week, and I don't have any problem fading Eric Ebron in a chalk spot, to be honest. If he scores another touchdown, he goes off. I'm absolutely fine with that. I think there's a couple really nice swerve plays that you can pay up to this week. I like coming back to Evan Ingram, quite frankly. The Giants O-line can't protect. They were hitting Ingram on those slant passes, which he can't be protected against by a linebacker because he's so freaking fast. So I think you could see more usage from him this week. I think Trey Burton is a little bit interesting, although he's very risky because Mitch Trubisky has just been firing at Allen Robinson at doesn't care anyone else right now. So I do like Ingram. And then the other player I don't mind is Jimmy Graham. It's a pretty good matchup. I think that is another bit of a sneaky game that could have shootout potential. With Aaron Rodgers' knee, he's not going to be running around. I feel like just throwing the shorter pass and the alley-oops in the end zone, whatever you want to call it, to Graham is going to be more of a thing. Had some pretty nice work in that regard last week. So I think Graham's got a lot of upside this week.
I'm with you on Ebron. You probably have to play him in cash games because he saves you so much money that you can do almost whatever you like. You use Clement, you use Ebron, then they're like 2 free squares in cash games, but they're going to be like 80% owned in cash games. And Millionaire Maker style, that it's just Ebron goes out and shits the bed like he's want to do because he's Eric Ebron, has alligator arms, but maybe with Andrew Luck he solved all these. Regardless, I think just paying down to Hooper is probably the move then if you're going to get off of Ebron.
Yeah, Austin Hooper definitely, 2,900. Austin Hooper is just so hit or miss, and his market share is...
But the thing is, all these guys are hit or miss.
I don't know if they're quite as hit or miss as Austin Hooper, though. Like, Austin Hooper could legitimately get you like a 2.
Yeah, he can.
I think I'd rather just pay up for Eric Ebron.
Yeah, but he can legitimately get you a 2. But what's the difference between him scoring a 2 and him scoring 5 points? Nothing.
Yeah, I don't know. If Austin Hooper wasn't going to be chalk, I think I'd be more inclined to take a chance on him.
I think this Ebron thing really blows this all out. I think that everyone's just anyone who was going to pay the $2,900 for Hooper, I think just moves up to Ebron because it's so close.
That's true. And there really isn't that many other options under 3K this week. I was taking a look at Tyler Higbee. Maybe you throw him in like a golf stack. But other than that, there just really isn't anyone else to trust down there. So I guess I kind of have to give a little bit of love for Austin Hooper just because he is $500 less. But I'll probably be. I like paying up for the guys like Ingram and Graham, who are just going to be way underowned. It costs you more, and you have to save at other positions. But the value is there this week to do that. So.
Well, Mark Andrews is the other one that keeps coming up. Both Davis and Siege brought him up on the DraftKings show on Wednesday, which I recommend everyone go check out because it's hilarious because all they do is fight with each other. Fantastic stuff. And now Siege is in a boxing match. Apparently.
Yeah, no, I saw the fight's back on.
Yeah, fights back on. He waited. I really wish he would have announced it Wednesday morning so we could have talked about the fight. But here we are. You can go listen to Siege. But Mark Andrews came up a few times on the Ravens. I don't love it, but you're playing like touchdown or bust at that point. I think the move may be, and it might not be the move because it's going to really screw up roster construction. But if you can get to Ertz, get to Ertz.
Yeah, absolutely. I won't complain with that. I don't mind taking a chance on Graham or Ingram either, but Ertz is definitely like the safer floor. And with Carson Wentz back, it definitely helps his touchdown potential.
Yeah, like I don't want to. I have really no interest in Ingram. I have no interest in Graham. It is like if I'm not going to pay for Ebron or Hooper down at the bottom and just save all the money, I might as well just go to the guy that I know it's going to see double-digit targets.
Yeah, fair.
And I don't know if everyone's talking about him and saying he's a good play, but the price looks like it's going to keep people off of him.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not expecting Zach Ertz to be crazily owned or anything. Not with Kittle and Ebron now. Like before, if it was just Kittle and we didn't have Ebron worked up, I mean, I think Ertz would get more people just paying up. But I'm not really expecting him to be. I mean, I don't know what you have him projected as, Pat, but I don't think he's going to get the 15%, do you?
No, I got him at 6%. But I mean, no tight ends beside Ebron or Kittle, I guess, this week probably break 10%.
Yeah. Okay.
Defenses. We were talking about them off the top. We're now finally here. The top three in terms of talked about defense of the week. You mentioned the Cowboys. They come in at number one in this scenario. They're followed by Minnesota and then Chicago. I've already kind of laid out the case of why I don't like Chicago in this matchup. Right. I just don't think the volume from the Arizona side of the ball is going to be conducive with scoring a lot of fantasy points. So that's where I'm sitting there. And they're not cheap either. Like, if they were super cheap, that would be one thing, but they're not super cheap. So at the same time, you kind of have to take that into consideration as well. The Vikings are very expensive. A stack is going to be Vikings and Latavius Murray. That actually sounds pretty good if you can do it, but 4,300 is a lot to pay for a defense, especially one that's going to be like 20% owned. So I suppose you could go to Jacksonville. They're kind of sandwiched between the two, and they're playing either a Mariota, as Tim would say, who can't grip a football, or Blaine Gabbert, who, yes, is in a revenge situation, but he's also Blaine Gabbert.
Yeah, I listened to Tim's pronunciation of Mariota today for the first time. I was very impressed.
I don't know how that works. I don't know how that you see the name, you hear the name, but that's how it comes out.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. Learn something new every day with Tim, right? But no, yeah, I think the Jacksonville is going to be the sort of dead spot. I mean, obviously, I think the Vikings will get a little bit of a bump with the Latavius thing. People just be like, I can pair them. Latavius isn't that expensive now. I'm kind of with you on the Bears. I do feel like if you play Jordan Howard, you can still stick him in with the Bears and hope for the double correlation.
I don't think you need to. I really don't. I just don't.
Well, you don't need to.
I just don't like that. In terms of opportunity, honestly, of those top three defenses, they all have probably pretty good floors. The move might just be play the Rams at $3,100. They might give up 30 points, but they could listen. Rivers no stranger to throwing picks.
Yeah. No, I was going to bring the Rams up, actually. I didn't want to hurt Feinberg's feelings, but Rivers is definitely in a spot where I wouldn't be shocked if he throws a pick six in this game. That's definitely, I feel like that might be the GPP move of the week is the Rams, quite frankly, because I can't really come up with anyone else. I know we talked about the Chiefs and Hunt possibly being a sneaky stack too, but I think I'd just pay down for Dallas this week. I really like the spot for the Cowboys. They're top 5 in sacks. They're really solid defensive unit, quite frankly, and Seattle is not a good team anymore. I'm sorry, they are bad. So I think it's a good spot for Dallas. If they are going to get super chalky, I can understand going away from an ownership. I think the Rams definitely sneaky. I think Jacksonville will be under owned in that spot. And I'm kind of with you on the Bears. You don't really need to pay up for them, but they still have some upside. It's still Arizona, right? So
it is, but I think I would just, if I was going to go up to get the Bears in terms of pricing, I would just go up to the Vikings and play it that way.
Sure.
Like in terms of like cash game defense, but I think you could just play Dallas in cash if you really wanted to and just have all the savings in the world. In terms of that Kansas City game, I'm not recommending you play the Kansas City defense, but if you did want to get a piece of that game that you think could be relatively high scoring, but box out some of the Kansas City offense, that would be kind of the route that you would want to go. The one defense that, I mean, besides Dallas, just because of the pricing, I'm going to have a ton of, but the Texans D with Clowney probably returning is probably the lock-it-in move of the week.
And yeah, it makes sense after I talked them out mostly last week, and they were such a good, attractive, cheap option that now they're going to go off this week, right? Now they're under owned. So
and they're an even better option this week. They're still $2,800. We just watched what happened to Eli Manning. Yeah. And the Texans have a way better pass rush than Dallas does.
That's true. Eli is a little bit like Sam Bradford in that he'll just huck it on the ground instead of take the sack. So
no. Eli loves a good turtle. He's more of a turtler than a throw it to the ground.
Yeah. He might go for one of his patented Eli runs too and just fumble the ball forward, 30 yards or something too, right? So
and he turns he also turns the ball over a lot more than Sam Bradford does.
He does. I mean, he's a little bit more turnover, bro. I'll give you that. And the Texans are at home, and like you said, the big factor is Clowney being back. If Clowney starts and stuff like that, so I recognize the upside there. And again, you're playing off recency bias of them sucking last week, and people like me telling you to play them. So definitely should be in play for GPP, especially in the Millionaire Maker, I think. Yeah,
I think so too. I like any time that you're going to get into a situation, there's 6-point favorites in this game. So it always just comes down to, is it a team that can get to the quarterback? Check. Are they going to play in a situation, a game script that's going to allow them to rush the passer a lot, potentially over 40 times? Check. Who are they playing against? What? Eli Manning? Let's do this. On paper, it really does set up well for them. So that's why I like them.
Yeah, the only thing that scares me is like Odell going for 160 yards and 2 touchdowns.
That's fine though, but like we just talked about, we don't need them to shut out the Giants.
That's true. No, absolutely. I mean, they could still get a fumble return touchdown with that coming. So no, they're cheap enough to play. Definitely. Again, we're talking about GPP targets mainly here, right? Lower owned plays. Texans are going to be way lower owned last week, and they're at home with Clowney. It's a good bounce back spot for sure.
All right. Any final thoughts on the Week 3 slate, Geoff Ulrich? Oh, I ran the most punchable PME guest in the face earlier, and you only got one vote out of like 500.
Where was this vote? Where did the vote happen?
It was on the YouTube page. So when people went to the ranking show for the week, that was the DK Bucks giveaway for $20 DK draw. So go get in there. Whoever myself or which PME guest you think has the most punchable face. I have like 98% of the vote, which, I mean, I voted for me. Look at me. I'm highly punchable. And just listen to my voice. It's squeaky. It annoys people. And anyway, very punchable face on me. But one person out there hates your guts.
No, that's good to know. I mean, I'm glad I made an impression on someone. I mean, I would have hated to get shut out. That would have been horrible. So, yeah, good to know.
Tim, I was frankly surprised there was not a lot of Tim hatred because no one really wants to punch Tim. It was just people like, oh, I don't want to.
It's so bad on your show already, Pat. People they're just like, no, I can't pile on to this. I've heard enough.
I suppose that's true, but some people did say between like him and Feinberg, they just want to punch them because it will like hurt their fists the least. You and I are very bony, so like that might hurt.
It would hurt to punch my face. There's a lot of bone up here, people. So take that into account.
All right, so that'll do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. To get in the $20 giveaway for this show, give the episode a like, go to the comment section, leave your DraftKings handle, and tell me which one you would play of Tevin Coleman, Latavius Murray, Gio Bernard, and Corey Clement on DraftKings. Which one of those 4 guys would you play in your lineups this week? You can only play one, so that's going to be it. I'll announce the winners on Monday. Geoff, anything to pump for the weekend?
No, just go and read my article on the DK playbook. It's the tournament targets. Give it a click, give it a read. That'd be awesome. Thanks.
At The Fantasy Grind on Twitter, where you can find Geoff Ulrich and go talk to him and harass him. Have some more hatred for Geoff Ulrich. He's too nice. You need to throw some water on his high horse right now, all right? I'm Pat Mayo. You can follow me at The PME on Twitter, on Facebook and Instagram as well. Subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience podcast, wherever you can download podcasts. Like I mentioned, give a like, enter the contest. It goes a long way. Good luck this week. Week 3 on DraftKings. Join me live 10 a.m. Sunday morning on the DraftKings YouTube channel, 10 a.m. Eastern time. Myself, Gary, and the cast will be here. We're going to go over all the injuries, take all your questions. It's a fun time. It's a fun show, if nothing else. People get real triggered in the comment section, too. Then we stroke that flame, and it's fantastic. And then Geoff will be on the Sweat, along with Gary and myself, 11:30 a.m. Eastern time on the DraftKings YouTube and Facebook page as well. So check all of that out. Just consume everything. Just click it, like it, and you can move on. You don't have to fucking watch it if you don't want to, all right? I'm Pat Mayo. Good luck this week. I'll see you next time.
That Mayo experience! Experience!